I have always loved the quiet. Libraries were my refuge as a kid. The soft rustle of pages, the sunbeams filtered through dust, the sense of history breathing on the shelves. So when my university offered me a part-time job as the Night Archivist at the old city archive, it felt like fate. I imagined hours alone with musty documents and microfilm, watching the city's past unfurl in my hands. I didn't expect the past to watch back. The archive was housed in a grand building from the early 1900s, all limestone facade and carved gargoyles. Inside, the reading room gleamed with polished wood and rows of green-shaded lamps, the smell of old paper and lemon oil hanging in the air. The public hours ended at 6 p.m., but the building didn't truly sleep. My shift began at dusk and ended at dawn. On paper, my job was simple: organize and reshelve returned materials, digitize fragile records, and keep an eye on the humidity and temperature sensors.
And if anyone shows up at night,
My supervisor joked on my first night.
tell them they're a day too late.
My supervisor, Mr. Hall, was an older man with wire-rimmed glasses and an encyclopedic knowledge of the city. He gave me a tour of the stacks, a labyrinth of narrow aisles lined with shelves reaching 15 feet high, packed with boxes and bound volumes.
There are some parts we sealed years ago.
He said, pausing before a gate across one aisle.
Stack 9 is closed. Too many delicate items. Don't worry about it. The gate stays locked.
He rattled the chain for emphasis. I peered down the dim aisle. The lights flickered beyond the gate, illuminating shadowy outlines of wooden crates and cabinet drawers. I nodded and followed him away, not wanting to seem like an overeager horror movie protagonist. The first week passed without incident. I spent most nights alone, listening to the hum of the dehumidifiers and the distant whistle of the train that passed at 2 a.m. I learned the building's sounds, the way the old pipes groaned with temperature changes, how the elevator sighed when it reached the basement. I kept a thermos of coffee and a playlist of instrumental music. The work was satisfying. I had never felt so content being invisible. On my 8th night, I noticed something odd. While scanning a batch of 1930s property deeds, I stumbled across a parcel map with a red X marked over a block downtown. The note in the margin said, "Condemned, Stack 9." I frowned, thinking of the sealed aisle. Curious, I searched the database for references to Stack 9. Nothing. I went to the physical card catalog and flipped through the drawers. In the section for architectural plans, a card stuck out slightly. It read, Stack 9, Relocation 1973. See file R-1128. My curiosity tugged at me. I considered the gate and Mr. Hall's warning, then shrugged. It was just an aisle. I wasn't opening crates, just looking. The gate was locked with a sturdy padlock. I jiggled it more to feel its weight than to open it. The chain clinked softly. As I turned away, I heard faint whispering, like paper brushed by fingers. I froze, listening. The whispering stopped. It had probably been the air conditioner kicking on. Back at the digitization station, I entered the code for file R-1128. The computer returned no results. Frustrated, I rummaged through the processing room's unsorted stacks. I found a box labeled "To be reviewed." Inside was a slim folder. The cover said R-1128. It felt as if the building itself had given up its secret. The folder contained a memo dated July 1973. It detailed an incident during renovations. Workmen had discovered a bricked-off room behind Stack 9. Inside were stacked crates labeled with dates from the late 1800s and early 1900s. The crates were damp, the contents waterlogged. The memo recommended sealing the aisle to prevent further damage. Attached was a photograph of the bricked room, a narrow space lit by the flash, crates looming like caskets. A note scrawled in pencil on the back read,
"Do not open."
My skin prickled. There was something thrilling and unnerving about secrets buried within a building I thought I knew. That night, as I reshelved bound court records, I kept glancing toward the gated aisle. The lights beyond the gate flickered sporadically, shadow shifting. At 3 a.m., I heard footsteps echo between the stacks. They were soft and slow, like someone shuffling in slippers. I assumed Mr. Hall had come in early. "Hello," I called, my voice louder than the whispering that had followed me earlier. No answer. I walked around the corner. No one was there. The sound continued, now directly overhead in the mezzanine. My heart thudded. I told myself it was the old building settling, perhaps rats, but the steps had rhythm, a human cadence. I returned to my desk, put on my headphones, and tried to ignore it. The next morning, Mr. Hall asked how the shift went. I hesitated, then mentioned the footsteps. He frowned slightly.
Old buildings make noises,
He said, then added,
and maybe you're not as alone as you think. The archive has its guardians.
He smiled, but there was something unreadable in his eyes. Over the next nights, the noises continued. Sometimes it was footsteps, other times a faint humming, a melody just out of reach. Once, while digitizing photographs, I saw movement on the edge of the monitor. A reflection on the glass showed a figure standing in the aisle behind me. I spun around. No one. The air felt colder, the smell of damp earth stronger. I laughed nervously at myself and kept working. One night, the lights went out. It was sudden, a click, then darkness. My heart leapt. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam illuminated rows of shelves receding into blackness. The emergency lights should have turned on, but they didn't. I made my way to the electrical panel in the staff room. The hallway stretched long and shadowy. Halfway there, I heard the whispering again. It was louder now, a susurrus of overlapping voices. My skin crawled. "Who's there?" I whispered, ridiculous. The whispering paused as if listening, then resumed, layered and urgent. I hurried to the panel and flipped the breakers. Nothing. The darkness pressed on me like weight. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared.
Do not open.
My breath hitched. I stared at the words, the light of the screen reflecting my own wide eyes. Then the lights flickered back on. I exhaled shakily. My phone screen blinked. The message was gone. I might have dismissed it as an anxiety-fueled hallucination if not for the fact that I had a screen capture from earlier, proof of the message. I saved it and resolved to ignore the gate. The following week, I arrived to find Mr. Hall waiting for me.
We have a special request.
He said, gesturing to a cart of boxes.
Someone from the Historical Society is coming tomorrow to research the old Riverside district. We need the materials from Stack 9.
He gave me the key to the padlock. My stomach sank. "Shouldn't we?" I trailed off. He handed me a pair of gloves.
Just fetch the boxes labeled R1880 through R1900. Don't open anything else.
His tone left no room for argument. That night, the archive seemed quieter, as if holding its breath. I wheeled the cart to the gate and inserted the key. The lock resisted, then clicked open. The chain fell with a metallic clatter that echoed down the aisle. The gate creaked as I swung it inward. A wall of stale air rolled over me, carrying the scent of damp wood and something metallic. The lights flickered to life, dim and yellow. The shelves here were older, made of rough wood instead of metal. Boxes and crates were stacked haphazardly. Some labels had faded to illegibility. I stepped inside. The temperature dropped. My breath clouded in front of me. I rolled the cart along the narrow path, running my fingers over the box labels. R1881, R1882. I loaded each onto the cart. As I reached for R1889, a thud came from deeper in the aisle, like something heavy shifting. I froze, heart pounding in my throat. It's just a box settling, I told myself, though nothing had moved in decades. I took the remaining boxes and turned the cart. A shadow flittered across the corner of my eye. I spun around. Something stood at the far end of the aisle, darker than the surrounding gloom. It was tall, indistinct, as if the darkness had coalesced into a figure. It didn't move. I blinked, and it was gone. My hands trembled as I pushed the cart out. I locked the gate and returned the key. That night, digitizing the boxes, I found newspapers from 1890 about a flood that had devastated the Riverside district. The articles listed casualties, including a mother and her 3 children who had drowned. One article mentioned that the city used the library basement as a temporary morgue. Another referenced the relocation of archival materials due to water damage. A photograph showed stacks of crates being wheeled into the building. At the edge of the photo, a dark blur stood near the crates. It looked eerily like the shadow I had seen. The humming returned in earnest. It sounded like a lullaby, mournful and repetitive. I found myself humming it unconsciously. One night I woke at home to my phone vibrating. No message this time, just a call with no caller ID. I let it ring. The voicemail it left was 8 seconds of whispering static and the faint sound of water dripping. I deleted it, heart racing. I decided to tell Mr. Hall everything. I needed to know if anyone else had experienced this. The next evening, I arrived early and found him in his office. "Do you believe in ghosts?" I blurted, immediately regretting how childish it sounded. He looked at me over his glasses.
I believe buildings remember.
He said.
Memories can make noise.
He leaned back in his chair.
You're not the first night worker to hear things. In the 80s, one quit because she saw children walking between the stacks. In the 50s, a janitor claimed a woman in a wet dress followed him up the stairs.
He sighed.
The archives are full of life stories. Some stick around.
And the text? I showed him the screen capture. He frowned.
We didn't have phones in 1973,
he said dryly.
But I do wonder about electricity and residual charges.
He looked at the photo of the crates.
We used the basement as a morgue after the flood,
he said quietly.
Some families were never found. Some boxes may contain more than paper.
His eyes met mine.
If you're too uncomfortable, we can switch you to daytime.
I shook my head. Part of me was terrified, but another part was fascinated. The idea that the past could bleed through to the present, that my beloved archives held more than paper and ink, was intoxicating. I want to stay, I said. I just needed to know if I was imagining it. He nodded.
Then be respectful,
he said.
Talk to them if they talk to you. The dead are like the living. Sometimes they just want to be acknowledged, but never invite them home.
Armed with this half-comforting advice, I returned to my duties. I began to greet the stacks when I arrived, to say good night when I left. When I heard humming, I hummed softly back. The whispering seemed less frantic. The footsteps still echoed, but they now felt like a companion's presence rather than a threat. One rainy night, the power flickered again. Instead of panic, I felt a strange calm. I turned on my flashlight and whispered, "It's okay."
The whispering rose, enveloping me like wind through leaves. Within it, I discerned words. Water. Cold. Home.
I followed the sound to the back of Stack 9. The gate was locked, but beyond, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. At the far wall, where the bricks were darker, there was a small door set into the masonry. A rusted metal plaque above it read,
"Records room."
I'd assumed it was just a bricked-off niche, but now, in the flickering emergency lights, I saw the outline of a doorframe. The whispering pressed at my back. I had the gate key. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the gate and stepped inside. The air was colder than before, moist. I walked to the back wall. The door was wooden, swollen with age. I pressed my palm against it. It gave slightly. My heart hammered. I should not open it. Every part of me screamed to turn back, but the whispers said,
"Home."
with such longing that tears pricked my eyes. "I can't," I whispered. "I'm sorry." The whispering quieted. A single word floated out.
"Remember."
Then silence. I returned to the gate, locked it, and backed away. The humming started again, softer, like a lullaby from another room. The next day, I visited the city's historical society. I asked about the flood, about families missing, about the temporary morgue in the archives. An elderly volunteer handed me a binder of testimonials.
It was a tragedy,
she said.
Many bodies were never claimed. Some say the souls linger in the stacks. They think their records are still their homes.
She gave me a sympathetic smile.
We all like to believe we're remembered.
I began a personal project. Each night after my official duties, I pulled a few random boxes and read the lives inside. A 1902 journal of a seamstress who dreamed of opening her own shop. A bundle of letters from a soldier to his sweetheart. A ledger from a boarding house near the river listing tenants who paid and those who left in the flood. I spoke their names aloud, softly in the empty aisles. It felt like a tiny act of remembrance. One night as dawn approached, I heard the humming for the first time in the daylight. The voices were clear.
Thank you.
They whispered. Tears filled my eyes. The gate remained locked, the door unopened. The building felt lighter. On my last night before graduation, I walked through the stacks one final time. I traced my fingers along the spines of bound volumes, along the worn wood of Stack 9's gate. Goodbye, I said to the whispering air. Thank you for keeping me company. A soft tap echoed back like knuckles on wood, a goodbye of sorts. As I left, the morning sun cast shafts of light through the high windows. Dust motes danced in the beams like spirits at play. Now, years later, whenever I pass the archive, I feel a tug. The building still stands, its gargoyles still watching. I wonder if the humming has stopped, or if a new night archivist hears it and hums along. Sometimes in my own quiet apartment, I hear a tap on my bookshelf or a faint whisper when the power flickers. I smile and whisper back, I remember you. They do not follow me home because I never invited them, but memories cling and the past, grateful for a voice, continues to hum.